Time to go through today's top headlines now with Tom Swarbrick and Ashley James. Morning to both of you. Morning. OK, let's start with Farage. He was on Nick Ferrari's show. The Royal Parks have had to refute comments made by Reform leader Nigel Farage, who yesterday claimed that people who come from different cultures eat swans and carp from our local ponds. Tom, this followed a discussion about Trump's previous comments.
Yes, this started because some months ago, when Nigel Farage was on LBC with my colleague Nick, a bet was made about a claim that Donald Trump had suggested that in Springfield they're eating their cats, they're eating their dogs, that kind of thing. And Nigel Farage suggested a few months back, oh, well, there will be some evidence that is produced about this in the future. They had a little bet about it. There is no evidence that's been produced about that. It's a sort of bogus claim. And then Nigel Farage went on to make the claim that, as in America, similarly in Britain, there are people eating swans, eating carp, and that there's evidence of this. OK, well, let's take a look at the moment with the lovely Nick Ferrari. Let's have a look.
If you can prove it, I've got my £10 ready.
Well, if you can prove it hasn't happened, that other way around.
Are you prepared now to say that that one was utterly nonsensical?
If I said to you that swans were being eaten in royal parks in this country, that carp were being taken out of ponds and eaten in this country by people who come from cultures that have a different... Would you agree it's happening here?
I've certainly read... I didn't know about swans. I've read about carp in fish.
Well, there you go.
So it's a similar sort of story. They're eating
similar story.
They're eating our carp, they're eating our swans.
But, you know, I'm not saying that. I'm just putting it back as an argument.
All right, I don't get my £10?
Well, I should get my £10 because you can't prove the other way either.
So, Tom, now you have to prove it's not happening.
Yes, this is a very, very different conception of proof. Not to get all philosophical about it, but the idea that you have to prove a negative is impossible. You can't prove that something didn't happen. An absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. And Nigel Farage is trying to say, well, because I've just said that it might be happening, therefore you have to prove that it didn't. That's not how it works, Nigel. And that's not how it goes.
The Royal Parks came out shortly afterwards and pointed out, actually, there are absolutely no incidences of people killing or eating swans. They are very, very carefully protected and looked after. The RSPCA have said recently there's a video posted online where an RSPCA worker catches migrants eating swans, but that's from a TV broadcast back in 2010. So it's something like these things come round again. So it was from 15 years ago. There's a clip of something.
Yeah, I think the Royal Parks are doing what the media and other politicians should be doing, which is calling Farage out on his lie, because it is a lie. And, you know, we've seen this sort of very gradual dehumanisation of immigrants. So, it's not about birds, it's about pretending that they're a threat to women. It's about... it's the same playbook that Donald Trump's used with eating pets. It's trying to suggest that groups of people aren't worth being seen as human beings and that they're a threat to women and girls, a threat to our culture and our country. And, I think it's all a joke to him, even the fact that he's doing this £10 bet. But this is, like, costing lives and it's creating so much division. And I would just like to reiterate that, these are vulnerable people with nothing, and we all want to stop the boats. We all want to allow people to work and contribute in society. Nobody wants, including the refugees and asylum seekers in these hotels, they don't want to be isolated. They want to be integrated. They want to be able to give back. And I really resent this political dehumanisation of a very vulnerable group of people. And I think, actually, the real cause of decline in our country is the cost of living, the fact that so many youth clubs have closed, that police numbers have slashed, that there is no social housing. It's either been demolished, sold off at a faster rate than it's being built. And migrants didn't do that, politicians did.
Listen, I don't disagree with a lot of that. I just think that people are clever enough to work out that by talking about one part of a group, you're not therefore describing the whole. That is the risk, that if you say that these people are all like this, then people are going to get the impression that they all are. The reality is, unfortunately, there have been some cases where people who have arrived by boat have been, provably, a threat to women and girls.
As have the UK population. And we're not, when we talk about men, we're told not all men. But this is not an immigration issue. The threat to women and girls is a man issue. It's not an immigrant issue. And it derails the very real threat that women and girls face by making it an immigration issue. Because if you look at the statistics, it's happening up and down the country, and it's not an immigration thing, it is a man thing.
I don't disagree again. Obviously, there are men who are threatening to women and girls, and that is terrible. But in the circumstances in which someone has arrived in this country who has no provable right to be here and goes on to commit an act of sexual abuse against a woman, or in the case in Epping, a 14-year-old girl, I think people are legitimised in asking, why is this system providing
100%. And by the way, I am a woman and was a girl, and I have a daughter. Nobody wants to eradicate femicide and the threat of male violence more than me. And 100%, if people are coming into the country and committing crime, of course they should be, like, removed from the country. Yeah. And that is not what we're debating. But it's this insinuation that, you know, these swarms of migrants are coming in and they're eating our swans and they're... Yeah. You know, we should deal with it on a case-by-case basis. And also, by the way, we know that the only way to stop the boats is to open safe and legal routes. And we've seen that because government research has proven that. And we also want the bad people to be taken away. And to do that, we have to process asylum seeker claims more quickly and efficiently. But what Farage is doing is he's, like, peddling this dehumanising lie because he wants people to fear migrants and fear immigrants rather than actually us looking at the real cause of misery in the UK, which is underfunding public services and no social housing and the cost of living crisis. And that is not brought in by immigrants. And actually, there is so much proof that immigration is economically beneficial for this country, like the fact that 1 in 6 NHS workers are immigrants.
But one of the things, actually, that Ed Davey came out and said and told members of the conference speech that Nigel Farage would make the UK Trump's America if he were elected Prime Minister, which seems to be he's just copying the behaviour, emulating the behaviour.
Nigel Farage has a real problem with being able to distance himself from his great mate Donald Trump, whether it's the swans and the carp or whatever, or the paracetamol business. Yeah. You know, Farage seems unable to say, actually, Donald, I think you're wrong on this, because he might get a Truth Social post about him that he doesn't find particularly helpful, or whatever. And that's not where I don't think the majority of people in this country are.
The extraordinary thing about what he said about the paracetamol Tylenol thing when he was asked by Nick, he said, asked if he would side with medical experts who say it's dangerous to make the link. Nigel Farage said, I wouldn't when it comes to science. I don't side with anybody. I don't side with anybody because science is never settled. And we should remember that.
It's ambiguous.
But it's also just dangerous because science is science. Like, that is one thing, you know, I feel like we're seeing, like, what used to just be seen as right and wrong is now being, like, weaponised as right and left. And actually there is right and there is wrong and there is fact and there is fiction. Obviously, the swan thing we know is a lie because the royal parks have refuted it. Yeah. But the paracetamol thing is also a lie until proven otherwise. And my son actually just had his SEN recommendation yesterday. Yeah, I met with the teacher last night. And, you know, it's so insulting. I said to her, by the way, do you think it's because I took paracetamol and I was pregnant? And I'm just fed up of men making assumptions on women's pain. And it's science. You can't argue with science. That is the whole point of science.
You know, clearly Nigel Farage is going through a purple patch just in terms of support, Tom. Unquestionably, there is a huge swathe of the country that are listening to Nigel Farage and thinking what he's saying is appealing to what it is that I feel like I need our country to do.
Yes, I mean, their poll rating has shot up. It's come off a bit, actually, in the last week or two. There are a couple of polls showing that they're coming down a bit. He's good at emphasising the problem. The issue, if you want to be a Prime Minister, is you've got to come up with some solutions. And actually, in the last week or so, whether it's the paracetamol, whether it's the swans, whether it's actually this thing about indefinite leave to remain, actually, the numbers aren't there. He's not backed it up. The policy falls away a bit, and it's...
By the way, he's not emphasising a problem if he's lying about the problem. Because, by the way, I'm very happy to have a conversation around immigration, and we all agree on any side that the system at the moment is not working. And that also, people shouldn't be having to risk their lives on dinghies. What he is doing is fabricating the truth to fit an agenda and to scapegoat away. And he's also talking about removing us from the ECHR, which, by the way, protects UK citizens. It was the reason that Hillsborough families got the right to improper investigation. So what he's doing is actually incredibly dangerous. And going back to your point about women and girls, he defended Andrew Tate. He stood next to Conor McGregor. So I really dislike this idea that he's doing anything to protect women and girls with his anti-immigration rhetoric.
Let's move on to our next story. which is an interesting story about stag do's and hen do's, I think. Two great mates, Donald Trump and Nigel Farage. Do you think...
Well, Trump doesn't drink, so he's going to struggle.
But interestingly, would he therefore have not gone on Nigel Farage's stag do had he been invited?
We know that Farage would be at Trump's, invited or not.
But maybe he wouldn't get a chair, he'd just get the socks like the last time he came
could have been
here,
that.
remember?
Ashley, two lads from Made in Chelsea, used to be great mates, are still great mates, I think, in some way, Jamie Lang and Spencer Matthews. We know they had a big falling out. And Spencer and Jamie got together on a podcast yesterday to sort of discuss what happened with the falling out. Let's just see what they said in the interview, and then we can discuss the reasons behind it.
I had my stag do, and you didn't want to come to the stag do because...
Well, that's it, I remember now.
You didn't want to come to the stag do, which was fine, which I get. But for me, that was like, well, why wouldn't you want to come to the stag do?
I don't like the concept of stag do's. You always get very, 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 very drunk. And when you get very, 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 very drunk, there's a tendency to behave in ways that you might not ordinarily behave in.
Yeah.
And I made a decision years and years ago that bachelor party stag do's just aren't for me.
Is it insulting to a friendship if you are invited on something like a stag do? Tom will, I'm sure, get your thoughts on this because I know they will be impassioned. But actually, if a hen do, if one of your hens turned around and said, "I don't want to come to," or didn't come to stag do, would you then not invite to the wedding? Would that cause a fracture in the relationship?
Well, I don't want to get married, so there will be no hen do. But what I have to say on this specific podcast was I thought this was actually so brilliant to see two men having a really important discussion. And I think, you know, in a world of toxic masculinity when men aren't talking to each other, this is actually amazing. I've only seen the clip so far, but I was like, I need to watch this. And I think it's so good to see two men having, like, a deep conversation.
About stag do?
Well, just in general about their friendship, because they talked about lots of different parts of their friendship and the breakdown of their friendship. I think I really respect what my friends want to do. Some of them want to get married, some of them don't want to get married, some of them want to have a big hen party, some of them want to go abroad, some of them want to stay here, and as their friend, I would support what they want to do with bells on. So if my friend wants to have a really big hen do, I would be like, I will do whatever you want, even if I wouldn't have a hen do, because I think that is friendship. But I think where it's a bit murky is Spencer doesn't drink, does he? And he's saying that it's a very
he's been very public about his
heavy
with alcohol as well.
environment. So I think, you know, I guess the problem was they didn't talk to each other until after. So there was maybe a lot of, like, hurt feelings and miscommunication on both sides. Do I think it's quite... do I think Spencer has quite a lot of audacity to say, well, I don't like stags, therefore I wouldn't go on your stag? I think it shows disrespect, but equally, like, he's allowed to not want to go on a stag do, and if that's his boundary, because maybe, you know, for him, he doesn't want to be around alcohol because he doesn't drink, then that is his right as well, but maybe it's the communication that's important.
Tom?
I like being at the stage and being a man, where you can go on a stag do and have a lad's trip, and it doesn't have to be pint.
Yeah.
Let's all get as absolutely as we can. You know, everyone's doing shots. I think it's a much better stage of life to realise that isn't the fun bit. The fun bit is hanging out with your mates, doing what you're doing, spending time with each other, talking to you, all that business. You don't have to get absolutely smashed to make it a really good time. And I actually think it's a kind of wonderful part of getting a bit older. 10 years ago, in the stag do's that we were all having, that was sort of the way of it. Now, I don't want it either. I don't want to particularly wake up feeling absolutely rank day after. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just think it's actually much nicer to gather your group of guys on a stag do, go out and have fun, and you know that you don't need to go and drink your body weight in beer in order to do that.
Or wake up and
I'm
not know
going
where
on a
you are.
mum's night out tonight, and
Are you?
I was actually thinking, the
Pace
lady
yourself,
walking
Ash.
on all fours, that'll be me.
That'll
That'll be me tonight, but less glamorously.
Get some tips from Alexis a little bit later on.
OK, well, maybe what you could do is have a stag do just in a pub.
Or just have some mates in a pub.
Just have some mates in a pub.
Just go round,
Perfect.
right? Scientists have suggested that carrying on a conversation with friends in a noisy pub could be the sign of intelligence.
Oh, wow.
What do you think, Ashley? Or is it just
concentrate. I guess I'm not intelligent because the moment the background noise came
Apparently,
out...
the higher your IQ, the easier you find it to maintain a conversation with someone when there is lots of background noise.
I feel like I'm quite like overly alert, which is why I'm not a good driver, because I am constantly like looking at potential risks to my detriment. And the moment there's background noise, my ears are going everywhere.
You're really distractible.
Yeah, and do you know what? I love background noise like pub sounds, but when the music's that little bit too loud,
there's a level, isn't there? There's
I find that you're
octave.
also having to really concentrate to hear your friends. And some people have a tone of voice that fits, like the pitch just sounds perfectly into music or the background.
Yeah.
And that's something, I feel like you get 3 chances if you don't hear.
And
you
then
go,
you just have to...
sorry?
Yeah.
Pardon?
Yeah.
And then you just have to go,
And then you're out, and then you're out.
It's really annoying, especially like as you're older and your time is much more precious and you go to this, you know, you all meet up and you might only see each other one time for a month and then you just can't hear.
Yeah.
Here's a really interesting thing. The researchers which say that the background noise makes the brain work harder to keep the conversations going, so if you're brighter, then you can keep it going. The other thing the researchers found that the teacher should put students who have less ability at the front of the class. Not just, of course, because they're less ability, but actually if noise is a factor in what's going on, they'll be able to concentrate better if they're right at the front of the class.
I kind of find that kind of background noise quite relaxing, actually.
Yeah.
So do
I have it on in the...
That's because you're very intelligent.
Oh, actually, please. I do. I kind of find that it's kind of sort of soothing. Doesn't Wayne Rooney sleep with like a hairdryer noise on, or that white noise thing?
I haven't been in bed with him, but I don't know.
Have you?
For the kids mainly. But
You have a what?
Yeah.
You have
A white noise
I don't
machine?
mind a white noise
White noise
machine,
machine.
yeah. So it's
It
like,
just makes the sound...
Is that not...
right,
That's not
that's
Tommy
just you.
saying to you.
Well, but also, I feel like that's a
That was-
different sound to, like, if music... Like, I can listen to, like, classical music if
Yes.
I'm working.
Yeah.
But if it's got lyrics, I find my
your brain-
brain
You tune
kind of
into it,
listens
yeah.
to
So
the
it needs to be like a
lyrics,
sleep
for sure.
playlist.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love a sleep playlist.
Interesting
Thank you
stuff.
for visiting our This Morning YouTube channel. We upload new content every day, so go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out, and we'll see you in the morning.